Pat, let's get our award predictions out there as well. You really going off the wall here with your MVP prediction.
So much so that I also picked him to be my offensive player of the year.
Yeah.
It's Patrick Mahomes. Like I said, I wanted Joe Burrow.
Guy stinks.
And the way I saw it was that my MVP was always going to be my offensive player of the year as well, because typically basically the offensive player of the year has become the non-quarterback award. But I don't see the obvious Justin Jefferson or Cooper Kupp or Derrick Henry from the last 3 years that have won that award, that have been better than the MVP, who more often than not is a quarterback. And obviously, and with Kelsey possibly being out, we can even see this more, but we saw last year that it didn't matter the weapons. Mahomes is that guy. He is that guy. And when it's all said and done, we could be talking about the best quarterback in NFL history. Certainly talent-wise, he may already be there. But yeah, I think that train's going to keep rolling. And though I love Joe Burrow, I love Justin Herbert, I'm not ready to stick my neck out on the line for them quite yet. But so, yeah, call me safe, call me whatever. I know. That's what I'm doing.
I think eventually voter fatigue will set in. And look, it won't set in if he keeps blowing out every other player and is by far statistically the best quarterback. But I think it's important to note Tom Brady only won 3 MVPs in the course of his entire career. Mahomes is already at 2. I think with how many talented quarterbacks there are, I'd be surprised if he won it again. Granted, like I said, if he throws 46 touchdowns and the guy in second place, say Josh Allen, throws 35, then yeah, obviously you got to give it to Mahomes. But I think I would take the field over Mahomes, which I guess that's probably not bold either, because that's just generally the better bet. The guy that I went with though is Jalen Hurts. I mentioned how he's just gotten better every single year. I think with what might be a running back downgrade, I'm trying to figure out if I actually believe that or not, from Miles Sanders to the guys they have. But I think Jalen Hurts may take a little bit more of the rushing load this year than he already did. But even if he doesn't, he's just gotten better every year. He has an incredible group of receivers to throw to. Again, the best offensive line in football, which that's a huge one. Like, that just gives you such a safe floor of elite production when you are already an elite player. Jalen Hurts is a guy that I thought should have gotten it last year up until like the last 2 weeks of the year. I think he ended up missing one of those games or something like that where Mahomes pulled ahead because of it. But up until the last 2 or 3 weeks of the year, I thought Jalen Hurts should have won the MVP. And if the Eagles have a similar season where they just kind of run through everybody and route to being, another top seed in the NFC, I like Jalen Hurts for that. As far as offensive player of the year, so most of the time, this doesn't go to a quarterback. I was looking at the history. I mean, recently, it's been a receiver. Last 3 years, it's been a receiver. Sometimes quarterbacks get it. Like Mahomes got it the year he threw 50 touchdowns, which, I mean, understandable. But it seems like this award has become a pseudo non-QB award unless that QB really lights the league the fuck on fire. So I decided to go with Jamar Chase here. I think Jamar Chase is going to be statistically the best wide receiver in football this year. I wasn't considering receiver in our fantasy draft. If I was, I would have strongly thought about Chase over Jefferson. Just wasn't even in my thinking. But the Bengals' schedule is very friendly to opposing receivers. I mean, really not a lot of defenses he needs to be scared of. And I think when you look at just him versus Jefferson, I think Jordan Addison's going to emerge, and I don't just say that as a new Jordan Addison owner now, but I think Jordan Addison in a couple weeks is going to prove to be a very reasonable number 2 target alongside Jefferson, to the point where Jefferson's not just going to monopolize all the targets and touchdowns and snaps. I mean, he'll get a shit ton, don't get me wrong, but it's not going to be where he is just taking everything. And I think Chase, they're going to be in similar situations now, and I just think Chase, with having Joe Burrow throw to him, if he can just put together a fully healthy year, I think he's just got to snag one of these at some point. So I'm picking him.
When I was thinking non-quarterbacks who haven't won it yet, Chase was the first guy really that I thought of. I didn't want to do Jefferson again, and then running backs like Eckler, McCaffrey, Henry, they're kind of not on the downslope of their career, but their prime started, and now they haven't gone down yet, but they're nearing the end of their prime there. So Chase is a good pick if you are going to go in line with recent trends in it not being a quarterback.
Yeah, so I'm going Jamar Chase there. And then, Pat, Defensive Player of the Year, you've got your boy,
my boy,
Max Crosby. So it'll be one bright spot on the Raiders this year at least.
Max, bias aside, I mean, I am very biased. Not only he's my favorite player on my favorite team, but the guy somehow, it's not like, I feel like he's very properly rated just because there are so many elite pass rushers in the league. Like we talked about Nick Bosa, Myles Garrett, T.J. Watt. I feel like Crosby is in that echelon right below that, which is fair. I mean, the dude's an elite pass rusher, but there are just a lot of really good guys that are better than him. But again, he's going to be a bright spot on a really bad Raiders team, and he's going to rack up the sacks. I could see him leading the league with sacks. This is more wishful thinking for me, I'll say, than anything. And I knew that this was going to be the pick that I was going to go a bit off the beaten path. But I love Max Crosby. He's great. He deserves better.
Yeah, and honestly, Pat, I don't think it's wishful thinking. I mean, seeing it be a Raider and you being a Raiders fan, I don't think, negates it at all. This is a guy that is ascending. For sure. Yeah, this is a guy that is ascending, and I think is a guy that people are kind of eager to give the flowers to and give his due. So if he's up there statistically, I don't see why this is a unreasonable pick at all. He'll definitely be in that mix. I'm going with a guy, kind of a similar idea, but definitely a little bit bigger of a name. I'm going with Micah Parsons.
Love it.
Just an incredibly versatile player and a guy who I believe he's entering his third year in the league now. It seems he's destined for one of these at some point, and playing in such a massive market like Dallas, all the eyes are going to be on him. If he just puts together the type of season I know he's capable of, he's got to get one of these awards eventually. So I'm basically just going to fucking pick him until he gets one. So Micah Parsons, I'm going for Defensive Player of the Year. Pat, Offensive Rookie of the Year. I thought I was going to end up going the same as you, and then as I thought through my options, I ended up going a different way. But I
thought I was going to go a different way as well.
Really? Okay,
yeah,
so
I went Bijan Robinson, and we found in years past that this award really goes to a quarterback a lot. And honestly, if I was going to go a quarterback, I was going to go Bryce Young. But I decided to go Robinson just because I think he's going to be the focal point of a team that makes the playoffs. Like, I don't care that he's not a quarterback. If you are what your offense runs through, then that's it. And like we said, he's going to get a ton of touches should he stay healthy. The way Tyler Algier did, he's probably going to get more than Algier did, and he's going to produce even more with that. He's going to catch a bunch of passes. So we are going to, this is the best running back prospect since Saquon Barkley, and I think we're going to see the fruits of that right away. And despite there being 3 other quarterbacks drafted in the top 5 picks, I don't think we have any, there isn't the slam dunk prospect. There isn't the Trevor Lawrence. There isn't that kind of thing. So I'll ride with fantasy here.
I agree with you. No, Bijan was absolutely where I thought I was going to go. And then as I ran through my options, I was like, one, yeah, I want to be different and not pick the same thing as you. But 2, if there is any quarterback here that can do it, it is this guy. And I'm going with Anthony Richardson. I think Richardson... Look, awards at times kind of have the same criteria that fantasy does. Like, you just want the guys that put up numbers. And I think Anthony Richardson is going to put up enough numbers that he can definitely earn this award. It may be a slow start for him out of the gate, but I think he's going to run plenty. He's going to, things are going to catch on passing wise as the season goes along. And I think he's going to put up a pretty nice rookie year statistically at the very least. I mean, will award, voters be super eager to give Offensive Rookie of the Year to a quarterback who probably led a team that got 4 or 5 wins? I don't know.
And that probably led the league in interceptions.
Potentially, yeah. I think, that's honestly a big key. If he can keep the picks down, I think he will take home this award. But I do think Bijan's the safest pick. That said, I'll go with Anthony Richardson. I have a lot of faith in him. I think he's a smart player. I think he'll learn quickly, and I think he's going to put that package together within a couple of weeks. And I really hope. I part of me hopes I'm wrong because our defending champion of our fantasy league did wait on quarterback and got Anthony Richardson, and I hate that. But
I finally went with him. I was 16-team league last night. I finally had to do it.
Okay. Well, I think it's going to pay off. I really like the guy, and I think he's going to have a nice year. Defensive Rookie of the Year. Pat, you and I actually picked the same guy. We are going with Jalen Carter on the Eagles, an absolute abomination that the league let him go to Philly.
Well, that's the thing that I think. I like not to compare him to Aaron Donald, but in terms of his draft fall. But the difference with Aaron Donald is that people didn't really see it coming. Like, Jalen Carter came into last year's draft process as being the number 1 prospect, possibly the number 1 pick, and fell for kind of just dubious reasons. Obviously, he had the legal issue that was really never going to be a thing in terms of his availability, more so just kind of a character thing. But they should see this one coming. Like Aaron Donald, it was just that like he went 13th, he was picked to go there, and he overachieved. But this was a guy that was still on draft day, was Mel Kiper's number one prospect, and they let him fall to 9 to the Eagles of all the teams. Like any other team, the Bears, the Seahawks, anybody. But the fact that he was that good of a prospect, who's now going to be on that good of a team, who's going to have a good defense, you're going to see his name in the headlines on a weekly basis. So it's funny because like it seemed like it wasn't an obvious pick, but I think it is. I think it's more likely him than a guy like Will Anderson or Tyree Wilson or Devon Witherspoon, other guys that went before him.
Yeah, I can't get that clip out of my mind. It was like his first snap of the preseason where he just blew past whoever the O lineman was, and I think tried to murder. It might have been Josh Johnson. Just frightening strength and skill from this guy. Was the number one overall player for months, honestly, leading up to the draft. And then, like you said, off the field, things kind of tanked that. But the talent suggests that this is not a crazy pick whatsoever. And as long as he's got enough playing time to rack up these numbers, I think he's definitely got probably the best shot at it. And then comeback player of the year.
Might as well rename the award.
Yeah. It's DeMar Hamlin. And look, it was just a matter of if he was going to make the roster, right? And he did, and he's going to play at least in certain packages or sparingly, but as long as he steps on that field, like it's pretty obvious that he's winning.
You talk a lot about scary injuries in the past. This man was inches from death on a football field. It would be a different story from the fact that like guy got in a bad car accident, barely makes it and then comes back. Like we watched this happen in real time, and I remember that. I think everyone just remembers that night just vividly. It was unprecedented. And, not only the fact that, granted he lived and turned out okay, but he turned out okay to the point where he can play football. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if they named the award after him. But honestly, give somebody else it too, because everybody knows that he's going to win. Give it to a second guy. Give it to Cooper Kupp. Give it to Calvin. Right. I don't think they're going to give it to Calvin Ridley because of why he didn't play. But give it to somebody else too. But it's the DeMar Hamlin Award, and it has to be.
Yeah, 100%. And Pat, we didn't write this down, but I just came to mind one award we didn't touch on: Coach of the Year.
Oh.
So, top of my head, I've got Dan Campbell. I think that's just an easy one. It's going to be somebody from one of the playoff teams that we picked. You have to, have a good team if you're going to be in this conversation. I think, again, another guy where people are kind of dying to give him credit and in the form of an award, and I think this is definitely an opportunity to do that. If the Lions win their division and even, if they were to top that off with winning at least one playoff game, Dan Campbell seems like a lock for this. For just the narrative-wise, that seems like he would easily lock it up if those things were to transpire. So I'll go with Dan Campbell since I am projecting those things to occur.
Yeah, and so am I, but if I guess by that logic, which is the rationale, it's always a team that overachieves. So I guess if I weren't to go Dan Campbell, I would go with your boy Arthur Smith. But I do think it's going to be Dan Campbell, especially with how much of a highlight grabber I think that team is going to be more so than Atlanta.